Friends, and welcome to episode 164 of the Noclip Crewcast. Hope you're keeping well. I'm back in the land of California. It's still raining. It never stops now. We've clearly entered some sort of biblical phase of California's life cycle. Perhaps the Central Valley will fill up again and will be the beautiful ocean it once was. We are repenting for our sins, the dirty heathens on the West Coast, with all of our drugs and our gayness and our free living. God has finally decided enough's enough, and we're just going to enjoy 3 months of nonstop fucking rain in a part of the world that is not suited for it. Jeremy Jayne, what sins have you committed over the past few years that have added to our plight?
Oh, what sins haven't I committed is the better question. We got a podcast to do. We can't be here all day listing off our sins.
Well, that's a good point. Now's the time to make them. You know what I mean? You got some in the chamber that you've been wanting to pop off.
Blast them off before the apocalypse comes.
Absolutely. Might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb. You know what I mean?
All right, guys, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go do some adultery real quick.
Yeah, you gotta. What's the lesser sin you've not done? Have you worshipped any false idols recently, or?
I mean, I'm like a pretty big fan of Martin Scorsese. Does that count as worshipping a false idol?
I did watch Killers of the Flower Moon this past weekend.
Oh, nice. I still haven't seen it.
It's very well. It's 3.5 hours long, so yeah, it did take me all weekend.
Who has the time?
It's which considering his previous work, The Irishman, showed a remarkable amount of restraint on his part.
How long was that one? That was like
The Irishman.
Hours? 3?
It's like 6 hours long, isn't it? The really? Irishman, isn't it?
I haven't seen it.
It's a series, isn't it? Or is it a series? There is a podcast. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before. It is a podcast done by Ryan Simmons, who works for SB Nation, called The Irishman, where he reviews The Irishman 1 minute at a time.
Brilliant.
And he started this during COVID, and I don't know how long is The Irishman. Have you guys found it?
It is 3.5 hours. It looks like.
Oh, it is only 3.5 hours, man. Just felt
only.
So Flower Moon is 3 minutes shorter than The Irishman.
Oh, wow. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
maybe
a breezy 3.4 hours.
Well, he's on episode 136, so he's up to 2 hours and 35 minutes on this one. They are... oh, no, sorry. That's just the length of the podcast episode is 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Because how much can you really talk about a movie when you review it in minute-long segments? You know what I mean?
Until something happens, though, and then like episode 67, someone dies, then that's the banger episode that's an hour and a half.
Yeah, when Sean gets axed or whatever, I don't know what the fuck happens in The Irishman. I watched like 50 minutes of it and I could not get over the de-aging. I was like, this is just...
Oh, yeah.
It just
I've only
looks
seen
so
screenshots of it, but it looks bad.
And DeNiro and Flower Moon is great, though. Frank, what's your favorite Robert De Niro movie?
I mean, I Taxi Driver. I do love Goodfellas, too, but Taxi Driver is so good.
Not... What did he do? Dirty Grandpa? Not Dirty
Bad
Grandpa?
Meet the Fockers. His late career I'm not as keen on. His family vehicles.
Yeah, his padding the inheritance... decade. Sorry.
He just like had a kid. He's like 86 and he just had a kid or something messed up like that. Yeah.
He had his own. Yeah. Wow. Did he have his own kid? It's not. Sure, this isn't a grandchild. Sometimes when you have children, then your children have children.
I think it's I saw him get dragged on Twitter. It was like, he's having kids at 80, whatever.
Yeah. Seventh child at 79 years old.
Oh, no.
Seventh. Jesus. Yeah. The seed is strong. No wonder he's doing so many fucking movies. He's got to split that pot 7 ways.
Yeah. He's actually worried now. Despite having millions and millions of dollars, he's like, is it enough? I've got a whole Brady bunch of children here.
A broody bunch. He's got a brood. He's got to get done. Unbelievable. That's hurry up, guys. Come on. How many had he done by now? You know what I mean? He was probably like 3 in the pocket by now. He's got that river kid coming in any second. Jesus. Unbelievable. Speaking of children, we love our children over at patreon.com/noclip, and especially the beautiful inheritors of our estate. Harry Flanagan Battle Royale games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Pez, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Cameron Laird, Zachary Snader, Alex Shark. Alex Sharp. Apologies, Alex. You are not a shark. Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, who will not be dying in the forthcoming Californian apocalypse, Tohir Tilyav, and of course, Ryson. Thank you all so much to our Battle Pass holders who give us an adulterous amount of money each month so that we may make light of their names and give them lots of free video. Well, not free videos because it's vague. The sort of the exchange that's happening is vague. They're donating money and we're donating content. I think it's all a tax scam, but don't worry about it. They've had loads of cool stuff to check out this month, including early access to our Monkey Island documentary, which is now out. The behind the scenes video on our filming for the Pentiment documentary. We make documentaries. We don't just make documents. Pentiment announced for PlayStation 5 today. If you noticed,
also
physical as well through the people at Limited Run Games. So it's physical. It's available physically for about 3 weeks, I think, and then it's gone again. And of course, our postmortem on the Monkey Island documentary that me and Jeremy filmed last week, and bunches of other stuff. Just years and years of goodness there for you to check out. We have a bunch of games to talk about this week. First of all, last week we talked about DICE because I was at DICE, right? Which is now that I think about it, do I even know what DICE stands for? Digital
Interactive Creative
Community Expo.
Yeah,
whatever.
Right.
It's like GDC but compressed. It's like the Bilderberg groups, but for people like Todd Howard. You know what I mean? It's like that. This is where we decide the future of
It's Bohemian Grove.
It's Bohemian Grove. You're right. But it just, instead of happening somewhere secret, it happens on the Las Vegas Strip. It's a summit, let's call it, where a bunch of developers come to. Tickets are like $3,500 unless you're a dirty press sneak fuck like me and Jason Schreier, and we got in for free. But you don't get to go to like workshops and where all the sort of meaty stuff happens. But it's basically where a bunch of devs come and hang out. Because of that high dollar price, you're kind of talking about studio leadership a lot. But I will say a lot of people within the industry did not get tickets to DICE itself, but like maybe came to the awards show, the DICE Awards were on, maybe just hung out around the hotel and had meetings and stuff like that. And I talked a little bit about it last week. I think after we did the podcast, I had a lot more meetings with people and got like a sense of what was going on. And there's definitely like a financial panic. I mean, there was last year in the industry writ large. Like it was a nightmare year to try and get any money from publishers. The VC money now also seems to be getting a bit tightened up a little bit. And yeah, if you said the word Embracer Group, it was like I heard from multiple people that they were glad that guy wasn't there because they would have probably hit him. Like it was like the amount of vitriol in the room. Like I don't know how that company comes back from does business in the games industry after this. This is with that leadership, because like the ground has been salted for sure. And it sounds like there's a lot more hurt coming this year, not just based on Embracer stuff, but just in general across the industry. Survive till 25 was the slogan that people were saying. So if you're looking for money, if you had enough money to get through that, if you like have enough investment to get to your vertical slicer or get to early access or get to whatever it is before your next round of funding, then you might be okay. But there was a lot of people going around, indie devs and, slightly bigger studios that really needed to get something signed between now and when GDC is over. And so some of them were like aggressively pitching at DICE. Some of them were sort of shaking hands and hoping to do a little bit more business at GDC. But yeah, a lot of pessimism, I'd call it. Not necessarily negativity, but certainly pessimism. So it was interesting. It was wild to see the sort of the background chat or to be people there would like talk fairly openly about what was going on in a way that was very refreshing. And you kind of cut through a lot of the bullshit that you tend to, see in news articles or Twitter where people are kind of like half telling you the truth. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was interesting. I'll definitely go again. It was a weird but very interesting experience, the whole thing.
I saw there was a very funny moment where Greg Miller made a comment about Embracer Group at the DICE Awards, and after he did, the camera cuts to some dude who looks very, very not entertained by the comment, and I was wondering if it was someone from Embracer Group.
Oh, I don't know. I was in the room, so we didn't see the camera stuff. We only saw the camera stuff that was on the screen. But great job to two of them, by the way, hosting. I think they've got a great patter. It was. I don't know who that was. That's very interesting.
Whoever it was, they were like the only person not laughing. So I was like, oh no. I mean, not oh no. If they're from Embracer Group, then like they deserve to hear it. But it was like a clip from Arrested Development. It felt like
right. It was fun. There was a lot of people like we met. There was some. A lot of it was like Noclip related. I was just touching base with people, very relaxed, like almost like not even meetings. It was almost like you just go hang out with somebody for a while. That was the point of it, and then just touch base. And then at the end of the meeting, people would be like, "All right, we'll talk about that. Yeah, you want to do a meeting next couple of weeks about that thing? Cool, yeah, let's do that." A lot of it very far out stuff, like games that haven't been announced yet. Some of them that have been announced but won't be out for a couple of years. Just basically like asking, what should we be recording, maybe, or what assets should we be saving? How should we be telling this story? Like how much of this can be done after the fact? That type of thing. And who knows? These might be docs that come out of Noclip. They might not be. They might be ones they do themselves. They might not be. But yeah, it was cool to just hang out with people and have chats. I met a bunch of fun folks at the various parties and networking events. All the Games Press people were there. I had a good chat with Keely about the Half-Life doc. That was funny. A bunch of indie devs that I've wanted to connect with for years. Got some nice words from apparently Todd Howard. Thought we did some good videos last year, so that was nice to hear. I turned around at one stage of the bar. There was an Irish guy behind me talking to somebody about Father Ted, and I turned around and I was like, well, I have to be part of this conversation. And I turned around and I was like chatting to them about Father Ted, and it was the Irish guy who was talking, like, is the guy who runs Havoc, the physics engine, and which I've wanted to do something on for years, or like talk about for years. So that's pretty cool. And the guy he was telling the joke to was Mark Cerny. So like that's the type of room you're in. You're just like all these like if you're a big video game nerd, it was a fun thing to be at. So we'll see. I'll go again maybe in the future. Anyway, onto the video games that are coming out. Not the ones that are, in the far-flung future, but the ones that we can touch right now. We can touch them with our digital fingers, with our marketing fingers, with our money. We can buy these games or play their demos, as it turns out, or get them. Looking at Frank's list, get them from our Steam library, and they came out a long time ago. And probably got, or maybe we have an Xbox 360 copy we bought 15 years ago. I have a bunch of games, but I've already rambled a bunch, so I'm going to throw it to Frank first of all. You're still playing a bunch of old games, but did you get it squeak in of Ultros?
Yeah, so I think it was also included in Jesse's like quick look video of all the Steam Fest games. Ultros was a game, man, I forget one. As soon as you see it, I think you either know if you're into this or not. The art style, it's a Metroidvania. It just came out. It is, I feel like Jeremy explained it very well. I can't describe the artist, if it's Mobius or it's a different type of looking thing, but Ultros is a super psychedelic, funky looking space, almost like image comic booky, just surreal Metroidvania. And
in my head, it's like if you had the colors of Futurama, but you like cranked up the saturation like 200. Like, yeah. It's also like really wet. Like the noises are wet and the graphics are wet. Like, you're right. I can't put my finger on what it is. It's like
it almost feels like a Sega Genesis game where it's like it's not like gross. It's not like Booger Man stuff, but it's kind of like you're fighting bugs and things are like it's like, and it's not gross. It's kind of enchanting, but it's
it's not quite it's not quite Beavis and Butthead or like Garbage Pail Kids. It's not like dirty gross. It's like clean gross or shiny gross. It's like that gross mixed with, like you said, it's not Mobius, but it has the sheen, the quality of something, of like an intentional graphic world. Just look a screenshot of it and you'll get what we're talking about.
And so I had to see it, and like, so it's not pixel art. It's the animation's like pretty clean, and like even your characters running around or doing attacks. And I've just maybe played like the first like hour, which I think is what the Steam Next Fest demo was, and there is like a game mechanic. There's like they're selling this game has like some kind of loop mechanic. It's not like a roguelike, but it's something to do with space and black holes. I don't know. It sounds cool.
And the way you like upgrade your character is weird because you like you basically, the enemies you're killing, you're eating them, and they all have like different nutritional value, I guess, and also depending on how you kill them. Like if you used varied attacks, you get like a cleaner kill and you get more nutrients out of them, and then you use the nutrients that you sort of ingest to upgrade different like paths on a tech tree kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the older generation of Yakuza games, how you would level up is like there's 4 different types of XP, and it's all like these weird in-universe terms. And so some bug parts you find will upgrade like your strength, your magic, whatever, and then you spend that to unlock a web of skill trees. So just as I've been playing today, I've just been exploring the map. And again, it's like a standard Metroidvania. It has the map. You'll have like an icon far away. It's like the objective's somewhere in this direction. I did finally unlock a double jump, which is always like, and then you can get a wall jump. So it's like, all right, I'm getting my groundings. But yeah, it's funky. The combat's kind of cool too, where you can counter the attacks and then open it up. You can also like, I don't even know how to describe it. Almost like Yoshi's Island, but you can throw enemies at one another and kind of chain enemies against together. So again, I'm just getting into it. I'm assuming there's different weapon types, but it's cool and funky. But that's all my experience with it so far.
Yeah, I'm not too much further than you. Maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours in. Maybe I played it on the flight back. I think I forget. Great Steam Deck game as well. I'll say like really fits the form factor as sort of most 2D roguelike-y stuff tends to. And what I like about it as well is that like everything is like there's a slight layer of obfuscation just because it's also fucking alien and odd and you're not quite sure how this all works. So even when you like enter a room, like knowing what everything is, for a while, and obviously you go into different biomes as such, they're within that sort of big open world, that Metroidvania world. And it sort of resets it again. Like there's some commonality that is in between them, but like, yeah, even what enemies do, you're kind of like, what are you going to do? You're going to have to watch them for a while before you like kill them. Cause you're like, I don't know what the fuck you even do. Like which way are you going to attack? Or some of them have shields. You have to do like, hold down the button to break those shields and stuff like that. So there's a decent amount of variety in there. I'm excited to see where it goes from there. It's available on Steam. Is it on other stuff as well?
Yeah, I got it on PS5 and then it's also PS4. I don't know if it's on Switch, but it's not on Xbox. I'll usually check there first, but yeah. PS5.
It's on Mac as well, oddly enough.
Wow, okay.
It works. Made by Hadouk. Is that how you pronounce that? Hadouk. It's they're from Malmo. God, with fucking Sweden, man. What is going on? Like I'm going to 3 studios at that Sweden trip, and there are like 5 more that I clearly need to go to. This is another crowd. It was funded through Kowloon Knights and published by Kepler, who are also publishing Pacific Drive, which I think is out tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Maybe. So yeah, I bought them as a double pack on Steam. You could get Ultros and Pacific Drive together, and you get almost $10 off. Yeah, 15% off if you get them together. So I don't know how long that's going to last for, but those are both games that I wanted to play. So I was happy to play that. Another game that came out that was in Jesse's video because for the Next Fest demo stuff, which if you haven't watched that, please go check it out. It's a great video Jesse edited over on Noclip Crew about the 10 games that he enjoyed from Steam Next Fest. He nailed a bunch of them because a bunch of them are coming out and they're getting great reviews. And this is another one that people have been, ever since that video went up, have been talking about it a hell of a lot more. Presumably because it came out a couple of days later. Balatro, is that it? Balatro? Is that how you say it, Jeremy?
Yeah, I keep calling it Balatoro. There's something wrong with my brain.
Ditto. I don't know why it is. It's like
there's like a phantom O in there. Balatro. This game is fucking fantastic. Like my God. So this is a poker roguelike is the best way to describe it. But on its face, I thought that was interesting, but this game is so much more than that, and it does so many interesting things with that premise. It's almost more like let me preface this. I feel like this is a very unsexy way to describe this, but I promise you it's good.
I do it. I'm putting on my lingerie. I've lit the candles, Jeremy. Let's go.
It's almost like the best solitaire game ever made, is how I would describe it. It is because you're not playing poker against somebody. You are playing you have a hand, and there's basically, where do I even start? This game is pretty complex, actually. You're trying to make poker hands, basically. And when you get dealt your hand, and out of the hand size can change too. There's like a million different factors that can change. Everything can change in this game. Okay. So this is not standard cards. You make a hand, say you have like 2 pair. You pick the cards you want to play. You can play up to 5 cards. You do not have to play 5 cards. So say you put down 2 pair. What happens is there is a base amount of chips and a multiplier for each hand you play. So say 2 pair is worth like 35 chips base value times a 2 multiplier for a level 1 2 pair. We'll get into that in a minute. The hands themselves level up. So you get that. You also get the value, the face value of the cards. So say it was like 2s and 3s for the 2 pair. Yeah. You get 3 3 2 2 plus the base plus the multiplier. Now, on top of that, you get Joker cards. These are essentially like they ride at the top of the screen. These are kind of like the Binding of Isaac roguelike power-ups and modifiers and stuff. Gotcha. You unlock more as you go in true roguelike fashion, but like they do things like I got one that was like times 4 multiplier anytime you play an even card, plus 30 chips in any hand per like odd card that you play, things like that, modifiers. Some of them are insane. Some of them I cannot conceive of how someone would successfully play with them because they're really risky strategies. One was just a random multiplier. So like there was one run that I almost got to the end because I had a random multiplier that saved my ass that just like popped a times 20 one time for no reason.
Oh, wow. And what are you trying to get rid of all your cards? Are you trying to hit a points total?
Yeah. So the structure of it is that there's kind of like 8 like levels. They're called antes. And each one has 3 phases. There's the small blind, big blind, and then a boss level. Each one of those has a like a chip threshold you're trying to hit. So for example, I think the first level is 300. So all you have to do is you have a finite amount of discards and a finite amount of hands you can play. And with those, you need to a total enough chips to hit the limit. Once you hit the limit, the round ends. And if you have leftover hands and discards, those add to your money, which you can spend in the shop on like Jokers. There's also like booster packs. You can buy more cards to add to your deck. You can subtract
Are they like
cards.
Foil packs you can get?
Yeah.
Oh my God, they are.
This game has like, I'm so glad there's no real money involved beyond the initial cost because this game has so much like gambling addict juice on it.
Right.
Like it's got little foil booster packs. It's got like jangling little coin and chip noises. When the cards go away, it goes like and it's nice. So satisfying.
Here's I think my most important question about this.
Yeah.
Do you need to understand the rules of poker to play this game, or does it teach you enough like as you're playing it?
It's hard for me to say because I have played a shit ton of poker in my life. Right. So this game was kind of tailor-made for me. I think you could probably learn poker from playing this game if you had not played it. I think you would have a huge leg up if you understand what like a full house is. But there is a thing on the side that you can basically bring up a list of all poker hands, and it'll be like it's like a straight, and then it just shows like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's like it explains like a straight is 5 cards that are suit irrespective of like suit, they're in order, things like that.
Which I think if you know what the hands are and which ones are score higher than others, that's basically poker.
Yeah.
Like really, I guess.
That's all you really need to know. You don't need to know about like big blind and small blind. You don't need to know about like table rules and stuff like that. You basically just need to know what the hands are.
And the entire like bluffing aspect of poker is non-existent in this game, presumably.
Correct. Yeah, because you're not playing against anybody. Okay. You're just playing the best hands you can and playing them strategically. But it is sort of a similar like mental experience to playing poker because you'll be like, okay, I have 2 hands left. I need to make like 3,000 chips in those 2 hands. I could play this 2 pair and then hope that the right cards come up. Or I could like do a big play on this discard, get rid of everything and try to go for a straight because I have like 4 out of 5 on the straight or whatever. The other really interesting thing about this is that as you progress in the runs, as you collect more jokers and you can level up your hands, there's one of the booster packs is like planet cards, and the planet cards upgrade your hands. So you get like a level 2 pair, a level 3 pair, and it just increases the base amount of chips and the multiplier for that hand. But the interesting thing about that is I had like level 5 pairs, and I had a bunch of jokers that are like times 8 multiplier if you play a pair, times like an extra 40 chips if you play a pair. So towards the end of one run, I almost got to the end almost exclusively playing pairs because my pairs were so strong that at some point I was making less base multiplier and chips from playing like a straight than I would have from 2 pair.
You just did the poker version of upgrading the wrench in BioShock.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had like the starting pistol in Resident Evil 5 was like so strong that I couldn't get anything else. It was like stronger than the rocket launcher. So yeah, it's really fun. It really captures the roguelike feeling of having a build, of like the randomness of. It's interesting how well the flavor of like I don't like gambling, but I do really like poker. And the reason I really like poker is because as you play a ton of it, you get an internalized sense of the odds, and you're like, oh, I got to go for a straight. What card? Like, I don't know how to count cards, but I can get a sense of like, okay, I didn't see that card come up yet. It's still in the deck. There's like 40 cards on the table. That means my odds are like roughly this. You kind of just feel it out. And it's fun having that same thing in like a roguelike, but it's also kind of like that feeling is kind of the feeling of a run in Isaac or whatever, right? Because you're kind of what power-ups exist in the game at some point once you've played enough of it, and then you're like, oh, if I could just get like the ghost hearts or whatever, then like this run would be. It's interesting. The flavors mesh very well together. It's like I don't know. It's like two things that I didn't know went so well together. Flavors.
There you go. Sweet and salty right there. Balatro. It's available. It's pretty cheap too. It's like $15. A little bit cheap at the moment on Steam, at least.
Yeah.
On sale. There's a soundtrack as well if you want to get that. Want to pick up that soundtrack. It's also available on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox Series S and S. Is this a Game Pass game?
I just checked. It doesn't look like it, but it is $15 on Xbox.
That's good point. It's only $15.
It's also this is funny. It's
on
like
Switch. Sorry.
The game is like 50 megabytes, which I think is really funny. It's just like, it's so, there's not much to it. And it also like
mostly the soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly. The aesthetic of it, I didn't even mention because mechanically it's so interesting, but it's got this kind of this like hypnotic song that just keeps playing, and everything is kind of like wavy. It has a VHS filter over it. It almost reminds me of the aesthetic of Hotline Miami a little bit or something.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It has it's like this could be a card game that takes place in the Hotline universe or something, but
it might be. I've not played enough video poker to know if that's what they're cribbing off of.
I think they are. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it is kind of similar, because in video poker you get a hand and then you push the big hold button to hold which cards and it discards the rest. And this is kind of the inverse where you're selecting which ones to discard. So it
has like a CRT kind of feel, like there's a warp to the screen as well that looks like it's almost like on a CRT. That's pretty cool. Check it out.
Really
Balatro.
Good. Really good game.
There you go. Really good game. Two really good games. I forgot to mention any of my games because I rambled so much at the start. I wanted to free up some space, but I have fucking 3 of them. Well, I guess one of them was Ultros, so I can scrap that because we already talked about that. The main one I want to talk about is my latest hot fix, which is Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, which is, if you think about it for 2 seconds, you'll figure out what this game is. It is a Deep Rock Galactic Vampire Survivor. That's what this is. It is not first person. It is not multiplayer online, mining game. It is Deep Rock, but looking at it from a isometric or at least in the sky perspective, and it's a survivor game where fucking all those bugs are coming at you, and you gotta get this done. Have you guys seen this at all?
Yeah, I saw a video of it.
Like before it came out and stuff, because this literally I don't know, got recommended to me on Steam. I think they're like, you've played a disgusting amount of Vampire Survivors, you might like this.
Yeah, I played Deep Rock recently with my friends, so Steam recommended it to me as well. And I feel like the Deep Rock dev might also be working on another Deep Rock game that's like a roguelike that's more similar to Deep Rock Galactic. So I thought this was that, but then it was like a top-down Vampire Survivors alike. No,
this is maybe actually different dev. This is made by the folks who made was it Don't Die in the West, I think. So it's what do they call Fun Day Games? But obviously it was put out by the Deep Rock people. They did not just make a game with someone else's IP. That would be
the risky strategy.
Exactly. So how this works? So it plays very different to a vampire. I mean, it fundamentally it doesn't, because you are controlling one character. They are auto shooting. And you have a bunch of these aliens, which I haven't played enough Deep Rock Galactic. I assume the biomes and the aliens that you're fighting are basically lifted out of the game. I could be wrong in that respect. But the way it's different, I guess, is that you are playing in specific levels that maybe last, let's say, 3 to 5 minutes, maybe each. And then when you do a level, it might be a bit shorter actually. When you do a level, you have to get back into your little machine, your mining machine, and then it goes down to another level, and you start again. You do that level, and then at the end of 4 levels, you get to the 5th level, and there's basically like a boss level. There are 3 different biomes to do this in. There are 5, I think, different difficulty ranks. So once you complete one of the bosses, you can then do it at a higher level. There is a meta progression that exists based on some of the resources that you're collecting down there that can help you upgrade your global health and XP allowance and the radius at which you collect gems that drop when you kill these bugs. So that's the general format of it. The moment to moment in the game is similar to Vampire Survivors in that you are killing things. The bugs are coming close to you and you're killing them. And then they're dropping these little balls, XP balls basically, and you walk over them, you get the XP. The XP goes up, you hit a certain level, it pops up. Here are 3 upgrades you can do. So very Vampire Survivors. Here are the 3 things. Do you want your guns to fire faster? Do you want, here's a new gun, here's a new blah, 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 blah. There's 4 weapon slots. So you start off with 1. I think when you hit level like maybe 10 or 5 or something, you get access to a second weapon, which you can pick. You get, I think, level 15 or 20, you get the next weapon. And then by the end of the level, you've usually got 4 weapons. That all gets reset when you go into the next level, when you get back into your thing. The way that this is fundamentally different is that the mining aspect of it. So while you don't get to pick where you shoot, unless you have, for instance, a weapon that always shoots forward, and then you kind of have some control over where it shoots, the mining happens if you walk up to a piece of rock. So if you walk close to a rock, your guy will start swinging, right? The dwarf will start swinging on the wall. And that basically allows you to create choke points to get out of situations where the swarms are coming for you. To mine stuff, obviously, like some of the mines will have like gold in them, which you need to get, or other types of resources. There's also like basically rocks that can give you health back, so that's another sort of incentive to go that way. And as you're playing through the level, you're basically cutting up the level, like the level that you're in, which has all these sort of preset channels in it that you can walk around, and then you're basically digging through the walls. Some of the walls you can't dig through, some of the walls grow back at later levels, and it creates like a different type of game where you were doing a lot of like kiting enemies into like choke points, or like one of the types of dwarf that you unlock later is an engineer who drops turrets, and then you're suddenly like, okay, I want to get the baddies, the boss ones, I want to get them down these little tunnels, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to have it drop turrets the whole way down and try and get them as much as possible. The swarms are huge, so because the levels are short, the swarms are way more intense, way quicker. There's a couple of things that happen in each level that are like timing based, which basically stops you from being able to just simply upgrade like milk, like farm them basically. The first is at about a minute or so, there's a resupply drop that comes down. You have to cut a circle around it so that it can drop down basically. So doing that is sort of tricky because sometimes the swarm is right there and you're trying to cut through it. Once that drops down, it gives you some extra supplies. A couple of swarms kind of always come, I think, or 2 or 3 times in a map. The fella in your voice comms will say, there's a swarm incoming, and then there's a shitload of these guys come in. And you have to decide whether or not you're going to try shoot them. Usually going to try and aim for the ones that are explosive, because there's these yellow ones that are basically just like little, petrol tank gas cans that you can hit and they'll just like detonate everyone. Or whatever you want to do there. And then crucially, once you have done the final objective, you have 30 seconds to get back to your drop pod. So you can't just hang around and farm everything. You got to go. I've never not made it out, but I've had it where I've been like just in the door with like 0 seconds left. Especially in the later levels where walls can grow back, or there might be walls that are impenetrable, and suddenly you're like, oh no, I don't have a route back. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And you have to like run through the baddies and kind of take some of the healing or take some damage that way. I'm really enjoying it. It's a little bit bare bones. There's probably some more stuff they can do to it to make it a bit more compelling level by level, but this is in early access. It's $10. So it's not, I'm not going to sit here and say it wasn't worth the money. It definitely is. I've played like maybe 4 or 5 hours of it, which, considering how quick the loops are, I think is pretty cool. Haven't played it on Steam Deck. I've only been playing it on a controller on my PC. But yeah, I really like it. It's hard to, it instantly grabbed me. And, mileage may vary on this stuff, but I'm super into it.
Seems awesome. Is it pretty similar to Vampire Survivors in terms of like the game feel? Like obviously a lot of elements are similar to it, but like does it feel like you're playing something directly inspired? Or does it feel like pretty different?
No, it feels like the one way in which it feels completely different is like the production value, which, you know, Vampire Survivors is leaning into its sort of cheap and cheerful nature, you know. This has great, like, you know, it runs really well as well, but it has, you know, a lot of baddies, interesting lights, explosions, gems flying everywhere. Like, you know how even Deep Rock Galactic has that great sort of like the way light and color is used is really cool. Like, it's a warm game. It has like lots of vibrant, nice, warm colors in it, and then that's matched with the sort of the broody grays and browns of the rocks themselves. So it looks really good. Like, I'd say that's the way in which it feels most different. But in terms of the game, yeah, you're mostly just moving around in cardinal directions, just like Vampire Survivors. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I think in Vampire Survivors you do a lot more jumping in between the enemies. In this one, it feels a lot more like you are the sort of band leader. What do you call the person at the front of the band with like the stick?
Like a band leader,
like,
I'd say.
The what?
Conductor?
No, I guess conductor's the one who's conducting. I mean, like if you're in a parade.
Oh, yeah.
Like the one who's just walking in front of them. Like you're, whatever that is. You're like the Pied Piper of all these things. You're sort of more cutting the path through the level that they're following. And what's cool is it's line of sight. So it's not like Vampire Survivors where they're all coming towards you all the time. If you're cutting through a wall and on the other side there's a bunch of the swarm there, if they can't see you, they're not going towards the wall you're about to come out at. They're trying to walk around to where you are. It's only when you breach through and they're like, oh, there he is, then they go towards you. So it's not like Vampire Survivors where it's very like the AI is non-existent, basically, as Lucas said in our documentary. This is more like you are sort of hiding and tricking them a little bit. They're always moving. They're never idle. So they're always moving towards you. The pathfinding is very interesting, actually. But you can sort of, you know, I think the bosses are the only ones that sort of really go towards you, but I think they always spawn behind you. So it never feels weird like they're bearing down on you and you've nowhere to go. I think the game does a good job of, if ever you get stuck or rather cornered, it was kind of your fault because you went into a corner. So that can happen a lot. Is there like a cute thing in Deep Rock Galactic that you have to kill sometimes? Like a cute, like bug looking thing that you have to
Some of the bugs are kind of cute, I guess.
There's this one that's in this. It's basically like in Dota or something where you have to farm these little idiots, right? They don't attack you back.
There's like a treasure bug, and there's like a voice line that some of the dwarves will say sometimes where when you kill it, they'll say they feel bad or something.
Yeah, so they do that in this as well with those little things. Yeah. So I think it does a good job of like retaining a lot of. It looks like Deep Rock Galactic, but just from a totally different, you know, genre, different thing. But like in terms of the art style, it looks very much like it. And those voice lines are in there too when you hit those. So I was wondering, if that was from those games.
Nice. Yeah, Deep Rock is a really good game. Can I tell you guys something cool about Deep Rock, actually?
Absolutely.
So after I played Enshrouded with my friends, I was so entranced I was so enshrouded by the digging mechanics in that game. And I had played Deep Rock recently, and I kind of looked into how procedural digging like that is done. Because for whatever reason, it works so much better on my brain than something like Minecraft that's purely like voxel cubes, because that feels very predictable. Right. Whereas like when you're digging down and you remove the one block, but in like Deep Rock or something, you can dig and it like there's a sort of like asymmetrical, unpredictable ledge to it. So I looked into how that stuff was done, and I ended up recreating it in Unity.
Oh, neat.
It was very difficult. I'm sure if you're listening to this and you're like a graphics programmer, you're like, this guy sucks, but it was very difficult for me. It's a technique called marching cubes, and the rough way that it works, this is actually really interesting to me. So imagine you had like a mesh, like a cube with a bunch of points on it. If you just wanted to like push those vertices back to simulate digging, the mesh would fold through the other side of the mesh and it would look wrong. So what they actually do is they use a technique called marching cubes that was invented in the 80s for medical imaging software. And what this does is essentially, imagine there's a three-dimensional array, like a three-dimensional matrix of points, and each point has a value. And the value determines whether it is empty space or whether it's like solid, like the rock. And so what you're doing essentially is, imagine the outside of the cube of points is open and the inside is solid. if you shoot like a raycast at the edge of the mesh and you tell it to lower the value of a certain number of those points, it like punches into the mesh. So essentially what it's doing is it's just like a big cube of values in space, and it's telling that whether they're rock or open space, and it's drawing a mesh based on that. So there's not actually it's not actually like a pre-made, because in that game it's procedurally generated, but what you're essentially doing is you're just like changing the values on a big 3-dimensional matrix of points, and it's drawing the mesh based on that. But it's really interesting. I don't know. There's something about that just like tickles my brain, that it's like, I always thought you would, because I knew it was generated, but I figured it was just like a big like blender object basically that just was being pushed around and stuff. But there is no blender object. It's just data in space. I don't know.
Does that make it like computationally, like, does that take, because this is where like my technical artist lack of knowledge completely falls foul of me. Does this like, is this very CPU burdensome, or is it taking enough off the GPU because it's not having to do it that way? Or it's not a physics object. You're basically just telling it, are you there or are you not there?
Yeah.
And then also, how does the collision work for something like that?
So the collision in Unity works. You basically just have a mesh collider, and then what you do is you update the mesh when it changes, and then you have to run like a refresh on the mesh collider, basically just to tell it where the bounds of it are. In terms of how computationally heavy it is, there are ways to make it more efficient, one of which is to write this as a shader and have it be like a GPU computed thing. I do not know how to write shaders. There's a very good video. Danny, you've talked about this guy before. Sebastian Legue, the YouTuber. I don't know how to say his name. He does like programming art projects and does really, really good YouTube videos about them. He has a couple videos on this. I think one's called Marching Cubes and one is called Terraforming. And he ends up doing a shader solution to it, and all his stuff is open source. So I tried to emulate what he was doing by downloading all the source code, and I could not do it. So I had to find someone that did it in C# and kind of like work off of that. But
man, C#.
But it's really interesting stuff. It's basically just like it's a bunch of cubes of points, and it's telling them what shape to make based on the values of the things in the cube, and then all the cubes connect up, and it just makes this like seamless but jagged rock formation. But it's really interesting.
Every time we talk about this, I wish I had like 2 more days in the month or something.
Dude, I know.
Like,
yeah.
Open up Microsoft Visual Studio for the first time in 20 fucking years. Man, it's good stuff. Thanks for sharing it. This is, I feel like all of this is just like, eventually a game's going to come out and it's going to be this insanely complex thing, and people are going to be like, wow, it was maybe this one developer. And be like, wow, why did that guy leave Noclip? Secretly, like, everyone's been watching the years of you chatting about this stuff on the podcast. Actually, what's funny is I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we're starting up a new interview podcast separate to this one, and I was asking people on the Discord who we should interview, and most of them said you. So
that's very flattering. I appreciate all of our people in our community. That's very sweet.
I guess you're the closest proxy to a lot of people, right? Because you're somebody who's only just started learning themselves self-taught a couple of years ago. So I totally get it. Speaking of, here, sadly, talking about somebody perhaps starting their game development journey, in many ways, this next game was the end of a game development journey. I finally got around to playing Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew, which is a game that a bunch of people recommended me last year. And I think also I was getting recommended it a lot on Steam. It came out in August of last year. It has overwhelmingly positive reviews, about 3,000 of them. And it's made by Mimimi Games, who are the folks who did Desperados 3, which I think you might remember was a game I really enjoyed that came out during COVID. I think it was in right after. It was like summer of 2020. They also worked on games like Shadow Tactics, which is another one that folks really enjoyed. And this studio is now closed. So after they released this, they put an update up on their website that basically said Shadow Gambit will be our last game. Making games is really hard. They just had a hard time selling them, and it's kind of like tragic because, well, it's not kind of tragic. I find it's very tragic, and I think people within their community were really ripped up about it. And a couple of people reached out to me when this happened. Because the games they make are fucking brilliant. They're really, really good. And they're clearly for a particular subset of players, and they make them to such a high quality, and it's really nightmarish that they weren't able to keep it going. So Desperados 3 I talked about a couple of years ago. This was like, in my head, it was like the new Commandos. Like, I really like those old Commandos games. I think saying that kind of reduces how cool and interesting Desperados is, but just like a tactical, like a turn-based strategy game where you are, you've got a bunch of cowboys. The world is just gorgeous. Like, every screenshot of this game, every like area you're in just looks beautiful, like hand painted almost. It's not painterly, but it just looks like it's been like handcrafted, almost like a miniature you'd love to like play around in. And the game really encouraged you to, fuck around and find out, like play around, do weird things. I really absolutely loved Desperados 3. Shadow Gambit, I was almost like scared to play it because I know that it's their last game. And I was like, if I like this game, it's going to be so annoying. I'm going to be like so sad. And it's super good. It is like a stealth strategy thing, just like Desperados, where it's in like a fantastical pirate land. It's in the Caribbean. It's very it reminds me of the EGA ghost ship stuff on Monkey Island. Lots of greens and purples. There's a lot of like, your characters at the start, or your characters you're playing, are all like dead pirates that have like special abilities. The worlds it's that same as Desperados, where like they're based in reality, but they are pulled in like a fantastic, like the ships are just insane. The galleons just look unbelievable. Like the buildings you're going into, the towns, they all look like sort of stretched, like sort of like, I don't know, like a Disney version of that real world thing, where it's just way more vibrant, way more polished looking. It's just a joy to be in these worlds. And the gameplay I've been absolutely loving as well. Like the story I've been enjoying as well. And the gameplay is just great. Like, you've got all these interesting sort of fantastical otherworldly ways of being in the world, like stopping time and doing blink maneuvers. It's difficult without being overly, it's like difficult enough to make you care without being ridiculously challenging. And I think the thing that I enjoy the most is that they have basically made a mechanic around save scumming. It is so cool. So there is a mechanic in the world. You're being talked to by this sort of otherworldly, I don't want to say what it is because you find out pretty early in the game, but there's this otherworldly being, let's say, and they tell you at a certain point a weird like visual bug happens. I was like, oh, that was weird. And then I died in the next segment, and then it basically brought me back there. It was like, oh, we'll go back around again. And they were like, what was that? And it was like, oh, it's this thing. You can basically like save your memories. So hit this button and you save your memory. And it basically just does a quick save. But then you're encouraged to try shit out and then go back and do it the way you want to do, or figure out a better way of doing it, or figure out an interesting way of doing it. But somehow the way they have set this up makes it feel more fun to do this, like save scumming or like quick saving, and then, which is something you do in these games all the time, right? Because like the stakes are so high, especially in stealth games, getting seen is such a difficult thing to walk back. But when you do this in like games like Thief, it feels like you're like cheating a little bit, but because they sort of make it a part of the story and like they reference it when you like do it and stuff like that, that it just feels like a fun part of the game that like you're meant to be doing. It has like you go to like load one, and they have all these like memory bubbles, and they're all just like screenshots of where you were when you did the quick save.
That's really clever to make that diegetic, because yeah, you're right, because the like quick saving feels fun because you get to experiment, but it always does feel like you're going you're like stepping outside of the movie theater of the game to like you're breaking your immersion from it. So making that like, I don't know, part of the like story. I don't know. That's really, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, and I like exactly as you said. It feels, even if it doesn't feel like necessarily you're cheating, it feels like what you just said, which is that you are stepping outside of the world. You're putting one foot outside of the world of the game for a second to grab a soda, and then you're coming back.
You gotta
in.
get some popcorn for a minute.
Yeah, it feels so. I thought it's just so good, and the game is just great. Like I would love to interview the studio and talk to them about what, eventually led them to do it. Was it just how much work this stuff is? Was it the games look like $1 million? Like, they look great. Desperados 3 looks fantastic, and it plays really well as well. They clearly have, I bet they also have a great little community of people who are able to like help them QA this stuff, and maybe these games were in early access for all. I have no idea. But it is really something else. They also put out a bunch of DLC for this that I have not touched yet. You can get a demo of it. It's a $40 game. There's a demo for free. They have, what's the DLC? They have 1, 2, 3. No, they have 2 DLCs, a soundtrack, and a strategy guide as well. God, even the strategy guide looks like $1 million. Yeah, really good. I don't know what's happened to the studio. Hopefully the folks who there, all the folks who work there, hopefully land on their feet, or maybe they pop up somewhere else. I'm not quite sure. It's rough out there money wise, obviously. And now I have to go back and play Shadow Tactics. And I will tell you that like it's like playing a game like this that's this good, and then you realize it's like finding a band after they broke up and being like, fuck, I wish I'd listened to them earlier. Like, this is what you get when it's like there's too many games. There's too many games out there. It's so hard. But yeah, I don't know. Thank you to everyone who recommended me playing this game. I'm also playing on Steam Deck and it runs great, which I'm surprised about because it's a pretty, seems like a pretty graphically intense thing. But yeah, very cool game.
Looks really good. Can I tell you guys a fun pirate fact? Because there's a pirate lady on the cover of this. My girlfriend told me this. So during the golden age of piracy, there were actually a handful of prominent female pirate captains. And two of my favorite
Irish one.
Two of my favorite stories that are both just kind of the same story with a different flavor is that one of these women, when they would defeat an enemy, like a pirate, would bare her breast as if to say, like, you just got beat by a lady, which I think is like such an awesome flex. And then the other version of that I heard, which who knows if these are like, that's from the golden age of piracy. These might be apocryphal. I don't know. They're fun stories. The other one is a female pirate would bare her breast and then like as like a distraction and then like shoot a pirate dude while he was like, Jesus Christ, there's like a breast out in the open air.
Them titties, man.
Lady pirates are cool. Someone should make. Is this like a lady pirate story? Is what I'm getting at, because there's a lady pirate on the box.
On which one?
The Shadow Gambit, the game you were just talking about.
Shadow. Yeah, there is Shadow. Yeah, there is.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to. There's a lot of pirate shit going on, man. A Skull and Bones came out last week, I guess. Return to Monkey Island documentary. We got a. I don't think any of those games have the distract your
breast bearing
enemies with the breast thing. No,
that'd be a good turn-based strategy move, though. You know what I mean? Like that's like that would fit right in Divinity Original Sin 2. I feel like.
Man, oh man. Yeah, I feel like I need to learn about there's a bunch of Anne Bonny and there's a couple of other Irish pirate ladies. Calico Jack, man. Calico Jack. All those fucking great guys. There's some weird. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of great stories in pirate shit. Should we become pirate people? There's a tiki bar in Petaluma. We could become like...
Let's get really into pirates.
We could just become pirate people. Yeah. Chop off your hand, just get a hook.
Drink a lot and hang out on a boat.
Yeah. So
that sounds awesome.
Rum may be my favorite spirit already.
Yeah, and I love boats.
I'm not sure if I like boats.
I'll convince you. I've been considering buying a shitty boat for so long because I live very close to the ocean now, and I saw an abandoned sailboat on the side of the road the other day. Oh,
that happens. When I lived in Annapolis, you see that shit all the time.
Yeah. But this one was like, I mean, it looked shitty, but like, I think it was watertight. I don't know if I would trust going on
Jeremy. All right. How many times did your RV break down when you were like, and I don't want to speak out of the fucking dead here.
Yeah.
But, how many times did you end up?
Honestly, probably only like 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had a boat, that would happen once.
Yeah,
because that boat would sink.
Well, I would get another smaller boat on the boat, and if the first boat, what's the chances that both of my shitty boats are going to break on the same voyage, right?
Look, that's why twin engine planes, right, fail less than single or crash. That's not even true. Single engine props crash way more than twin engine fucking planes. But that's a whole other reason. That's a good point. Are you allowed to be like a fun pirate person and enjoy pirate shit, but also have a life jacket on? Or is that kind of Again, is that a party foul?
Like it's antithetical to the pirate lifestyle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's the smart way to pirate. That's
Just
then if they throw you overboard, you're fine. If you walk the plank, you're like, I don't care.
Yeah, you're like, fuck it. That's the ultimate pirate move, is because then there's no stakes for you. You don't care,
Yeah.
Throw me in the ocean.
Also, we shouldn't, this is 2024. We shouldn't limit our scope of what a pirate is. You could also go the sort of like East African pirate route. You know what I mean? Like you just could be a I don't know, like a Somali or an Eritrean person who like steals oil tankers.
That's true.
I mean, Captain Phillips, that shit.
Yeah, I'm the captain now.
I'm the captain now. Exactly.
Yeah.
We could do that. There's so many different types of pirate. I'm sure Skull and Bones, I don't know much about, the Indian Ocean and what was going on then there, I don't think it's probably Skull and Bones is not an accurate representation of that, I'm guessing. I don't know. I played the start of the demo, and I think in the start of the demo, I single-handedly destroyed about 30 galleons, which seemed like maybe a bit much.
Have you played Sid Meier's Pirates? I've never played it, and I've always wanted to.
No, you wanted to do a fat session on it, right?
Yeah. So I did a fat session yesterday for Morrowind, and I filmed the intro the on-camera intro, and I was talking about how it's like sometimes a fat session is like revisiting a comfortable old game, but sometimes it's like taking a risk and hoping you can play a game you've never really played before for 6 hours and make it interesting. So I feel like there's room for fat session to be a little bit of a gamble on a game that I don't know well enough to know if it'll make good content.
There is also, Bethesda did a pirate game, didn't they? They did like am I crazy? Bethesda Game Studios. For some reason I have it in my head they did a pirate game. They did a lot of weird games. They did a hockey game or a football game. They did that Terminator game.
I've always wanted to play the Terminator game. Oh, are you thinking of Sea Dogs?
It fucking was not, bro. What is Sea Dogs?
It's a Russian role-playing game developed by Akela, published by Bethesda from 2000.
Okay. No. They also published the Pirates of the Caribbean game, but they did not make that.
Okay.
For some reason in my head, why does this Wikipedia thing only go back to 2002? It says their first game was Morrowind, which seems like, who are we saying made Daggerfall? If that's the fucking...
It was just found in the woods one day.
Bethesda Softworks. Okay, it was called Bethesda Softworks. Okay, Bethesda Softworks pirate game. Come on, motherfucker. It's got to be here. Did I make this up? Sea Dogs came up as well. Sea Dogs, man.
Yeah, I got the Pirates of the Caribbean games on here.
Sea Dog. What was the name of the guy in the radio in DC?
In Fallout 3?
Yeah.
One Dog? What's his name?
Not Moon Dog.
Rude. What's his name? Something Dog. Okay, I found it. Okay, Wayne Gretzky Hockey they made first, then the Terminator games, then Elder Scrolls, a couple other ones.
Three Dog.
IHRA Drag Racing. What was it?
Three Dog.
Three Dog.
Yeah, and then it says Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe it was Pirates of the Caribbean I was thinking of. The Pirates of the Caribbean. No, fuck. I bet it was something else. All right, put it in the comments, folks. Put us out.
Put us out for misery.
That's all the games we played. We got a couple of emails here, Frank Cowley.
Yeah. We had 2 emails this week, and if you do want to send in emails, email us at podcast@noclip.video, or if you're in our Patreon Discord, we have the podcast chat. I forgot to bring it up, but someone in the podcast chat was like, Jeremy needs to explain Stalker. I didn't get it. I don't mean to be dismissive, but it is a I don't want to say tough movie to break into if you're not already used to that kind of world cinema. So
yeah,
go watch it.
I feel like that person watched it and was confused. Here's what I would say if you watch the movie and are confused. I bet you, this is what I said to them on the Discord, I bet you there's like an uncountable number of great video essays that are like, Stalker is a movie about this and that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure someone way more eloquent than me has explained it very well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even when I watch movies outside my comfort zone, like Wikipedia, Criterion has essays and everything. I'll see if Ebert reviewed it. I'll just look at other writing and be like, oh, okay, I get it. Like,
what was I meant to feel?
Yeah.
My feelings are confusing and I don't like looking at them. Please tell me how to feel about
just
Stalker.
Know that everyone who worked on it died like 20 years later from cancer and radiation poisoning.
Wait, the Stalker movie?
Yeah. Okay, so there are...
I don't want to know. I'm going to watch the movie. I don't want to... The more I learn through osmosis about this movie, I'm like, no, I just want to watch it. I'm going to watch it.
Just don't hang out at radioactive sites.
Yeah, fair.
Especially if you're making a film. Maybe it's not worth it. I don't know, or maybe it was. I don't know. Who's this? Okay, new email. Graham Walker has a great question about storytelling in games. Hi, I was really interested in the conversation on the last podcast, considering the push and pull between telling stories in games and making it your own. I remember feeling frustrated towards the end of Nier Automata, where I wanted to make a choice not to kill a character, but when I tried this, only getting a game over screen. I was recently listening to the great podcast from the Association of Interactive Arts and Science with the director of God of War Ragnarok. He was saying how his studio's motto is "Our journey, your story," noting that he wants to allow players to create their own stories while they go on the journey the studio has created. It made me think about the funny line Jeremy made about reading, that the only choice you have is when to turn the page. It made me think that this is ultimately true for all narrative-based games to some extent. You have a lot of choice of where you want to go on the page at any one time, but at some point you will have to turn the page. I wondered whether you guys felt this was a fair way of viewing the issue, and whether maybe players need to be more accepting that even in the most open narrative games, they have to allow the developers to tell their story. Not all games can or should be Weird West. Thanks, Graham Walker.
Man, is that were they shit talking Weird West?
I think they're saying Weird West is
you,
like
sir.
so open ended that it allows you to kind of write your own story.
Yeah. Go play Weird West, everyone. That game's great.
Yeah, Weird West is really
Desperados 3 as well. Play that. Just play pirates and cowboys. All right, that's what we're all about here.
Yeah,
this is a really interesting question. Whether like games at some point just make you turn the page. I don't know. I think it gets into what we were talking about, which is that like the more like if this is like the cone of options, and the more open ended and sandboxy the game, the wider the cone is.
Jeremy's making a cone get wider.
I'm taking my two hands and making a ever widening V with them.
Yeah. I was literally, Frank. I was going to just.
If you put your hands, one person goes sideways, one goes
that's another
vertical.
Story shape. You know, Kirvanaga talked about all the story shapes.
Me and Frank did these schoolyard. Put your fingers together, open them up, and have a look inside and see what's there thing. So
yeah.
Guys, this is serious talk about ludonarrative dissonance. All right, everyone, quiet down, class. I think the wider you go with the options, the more risk you have of a player just wandering off and having like a meaningless experience, or not experiencing the things you want them to, or not experiencing like tailored, curated content. Like I played Morrowind yesterday and I had a great time, but then at the end I was like, let's just like book it for the north side of Morrowind. And it's a valid way to play the game, but like I didn't really run into anything because I was just like, I wasn't on the path. I was just Skyrimming up hills, you know.
And I think that's a good example of like that it is never one thing. It, you know, and even in one game, it's never one thing. Like in Morrowind, right? You have like you mentioned, you know, I've not played enough Morrowind, but if you think about something like Oblivion or Skyrim, I can. You know, I'll talk about the Dark Brotherhood, which is this very curated thing that I had no part in or agency in telling that story. Or maybe I had in a little way in the way in which I approached it, I guess, in the way in which I ultimately chose what I was doing. Sure. But then there is the incidental things that happen on the path, or like you said, like just going on your own quest, just going, you know, I'm going to get to the top of the map and do it that way. And it's funny because like I didn't listen to the EAS Cory Barlog interview, but to me, those are the games that I find narratively oftentimes the least interesting. Is very scripted single player, like The Last of Us, is another one of these, or Spider-Man. Sometimes I do like The Last of Us, for instance, I think has a really good story. And The Last of Us 2, I think, is one that people, you know, differ a lot more on. I certainly don't feel like I have any agency when I play those games. That's not why I'm in that story. And God of War is the same way. Like I don't, you know, they're beautiful roller coaster rides, and you can make choices, and the combat is where you make a lot of your choices. But in those games in particular, I don't feel that way. But then I don't know, like maybe my relationship with my dad would be the story I'm telling myself when I'm playing that game. You know what I mean? Like I can see that. I guess when you watch movies, you experience them in different ways, or you read the story in a different way based on your own experiences. You bring that into it. But yeah, I don't know. I also don't think it's the player's fault if they don't, you know. I think the game or the piece of media or art has to share some responsibility there.
There's a relevant line in the upcoming Pentiment documentary, which is very long and very good, I think. There's a line where Josh Story talks about the reactivity in the game and the way that like making certain choices will make the game react to you in certain ways. And he talks about how reactivity in games is often kind of a smokescreen. It's like a gambit on the part of the developer where they have to pick and choose where the reactivity is. And then if it works successfully, the player experiences one of those islands of reactivity. And in their brain, they're like, holy shit, is everything in this world measuring how I'm acting and reacting in a certain way? And so in many ways, the game development is the art of tricking the player into thinking that they have an endless sea of choice while presenting to them a curated set of choices or something. So in a way, like you're choosing when to turn the page. I mean, it's more like a Goosebumps choose your own adventure novel. You get to choose which page to turn to. Like, do you turn to 33 if you jump on the moving car? But it's like, by making the player think they could choose to turn to any page, that's kind of the trick that game developers are doing.
And I think that there's like there's probably a word for this maybe in game development that I'm not aware of, but I think this whole part of our like expectation as consumers of art, like really informs the games we play, because there are people who like shooting who would never play The Last of Us because they're like, I just don't play games like because of this feeling of having authority or authorship over the story of what's happening, like I don't think of strategy games as story games, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think of Age of Empires as like a narrative experience, but the feeling of having, a stake or being able to make choices and having those impacts, that's the same if it's a narrative thing or if it's a gameplay thing. I imagine there's a lot of overlap there, and there are people who want to play sandbox games because they want to have as much control as they humanly can. And then you've games like the Elder Scrolls games that strike a balance, that have sort of like, you want to play that way, you want to play this way. And then you've games like that where it's way more of a thing. And like, it came up again, and it came up in the Return to Monkey Island documentary a lot, because the ending of that game burdens the player with bringing themselves into it. And if you're playing that game and you're not bringing yourself into that, I couldn't not, because it was like this momentous, I'm returning to one of my favorite game series ever. I played this when I was a child. I am now a grown up, a parent, I couldn't not play that game through that lens. Whereas there are other people who, for whatever reason, the way their brains work, the way they think about their own past, the way their memory is, doesn't matter, don't do that, then the ending of that game is probably going to feel like the ambiguity in it is going to feel really frustrating. Whereas to me, because I was bringing all that shit in, it worked. So maybe that's a gambit that writers do too. Maybe that's a gambit where they're like hoping that the player will bring some of themselves into it. Or that within that like ambiguity of saying, what is the secret of Monkey Island? It's this one thing, or is it this more, I don't know, transparent thing that you're not quite sure where it lands, and you bring yourself into it. I don't know. This is why I don't write. It seems really hard.
I don't know, man. You just put a bunch of words on the page. That can't be that hard.
Just words. There you go. Take that, writers. We have another message here.
Yeah, this is from Dave Valentatin. Hello, no clippies. I've been trying to catch up on the podcast by putting it on while doing work around the house. I've now passed the episode where Danny and Jesse have watched a little bit of the Boogie2988 documentary, but I hadn't yet found the strength to complete this wild journey.
Bougie. Podcast. I want to watch Boogie2988. It's like this French aristocrat. Like, oh my God.
The podcast after that didn't mention it, so now I'm burning with curiosity if any of you have witnessed the full breadth of this train wreck. And as documentary professionals, have you learned anything about this deep dive? Love the things y'all do. Get a few more game tapes up when you get a minute. Have a nice day,
yes.
Dave, aka Puke.
The Dav, the messages are coming, or the tapes are coming. Sorry, finally got set up. Jeremy, you'll be filming in the studio, the garage studio later today. You'll see some of that tape action going on. Sorry for the delay. We moved offices and a bunch of other shenanigans happened. Had to move where all that stuff was physically myself, which is also very difficult because there's quite a lot of them. I did not watch. I watched more of it. I watched like another 30 minutes or so at a different stage. It is such a downer that it is hard to get through. I should, for if nothing else, due diligence, finish it, but I have not.
It's excellent. It is.
Did you finish
I watched it like that week. Like I think I watched it that night. Like we recorded the podcast, you guys were talking about it, and then that night I watched it. Oh, it's incredible. And I watched it with like a group of friends. Like we just streamed it and we're on Discord hanging out and laughing. And maybe that's a cruel, I don't know, but you know what? I loved it. It's really
meant
funny.
to be funny as well.
It's
like
so funny.
He's part of that. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't think it takes the piss at him. I think one of the things that I like about it the most is he is so transparent and just like, I bet the whole thing.
he's kind of rolling with it. There's one moment he's like walking out of like his trading card shop or something, and you just hear a snap, and he's like, "Well, there's my ankle. I just broke my ankle. I'm so fat. I just broke my ankle." And it's like, "Oh, dude, come on!" Like, there's another incredible line where he's having his like weekly trading card night, and it's like, "And this guy doesn't have a girlfriend. This guy doesn't have a girlfriend." He's like being such an asshole to all of his friends, and then he's like, "Listen, guys. Every week, I'm spending $300 on pizzas and sodas, and I'm not going to say it, but no one's chipping in." And then the friends are like, "We told you, we don't eat the pizza. We don't need the pizza." like every scene, it's like something out of an American movie.
100%.
It's so funny. Like, so I think I think it's a great documentary.
It's fantastic. So good. No, it's really good. It is. At a certain point, I live my life with depression and anxiety.
Sure.
Right. So at a certain point, I'm good at reading my own internal, like when the chemicals go off in my brain. And I got a couple of red flags when I was watching that, like pull out, pull up. And I couldn't go through it. It's really well produced. It's really well put together. What it made me feel was really envious that, I don't get to spend 6 months or whatever. Like, I feel the same way about PMG, where I'm like, people make games, put out these terrific documentaries, but they only do a few of them a year, right? And it's like, that's what you can do if you settle down. But I want to cover as much shit as we possibly can, because no one else seems to be doing this stuff still. It's fucking been 7.5 years, and we're still kind of the only people doing it. There's some stuff, devs are doing it a bit more, and I wish we could do it better, and I wish we could do it with higher production value and X, Y, and Z, but no one's making a Pentiment documentary, and in 20 years people are going to be like, wow, wish we had a Pentiment documentary. And so we got to do it. We got to get the stuff done. So I don't know, it's tricky.
And one thing about the Pentiment documentary, and I'm eager to see how much is in the documentary, but like, I feel like we're also, even the fact that we're living in the age of Game Pass, which I do not know how long we'll have. I feel like Pentiment is literally because of Game Pass. So we got to capture like such a great example of why Game Pass is incredible. And so,
I'm not doing Microsoft's marketing for them. Although
I know.
Although they need it. Well, Pentiment's actually part of that whole thing that happened last week, right? Where they were like, oh, there's a bunch of games coming out that are ex-Microsoft exclusives that are going to come out. And then today they announced PlayStation. That's obviously one of them. The other ones seem to be that people are thinking are, do you remember? Fuck. I thought I nailed down all 4 of them last week.
Yeah.
Shit. Now my brain is...
Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush people definitely think is one of them.
That's a great one. People haven't played it,
They're not going to do Starfield or... What else did they say?
Sea of Thieves looks to be one of them.
Sea of Thieves is another no-brainer, because it's a network game, right? It's a live service game. I'm trying to remember what number 4 might be. Blink's the Time Sweeper. Let's just say that.
Grounded is the other.
That's another. Well, that'd be funny if it was 2 Obsidian games. Yeah. That would be a good shout as well. But yeah, Pentiment's a good. Hopefully more people play it, and we'll get our documentary up. Loads more stuff coming over on Noclip Crew. Helldivers 2 quick look went up today. Go check that out. Of course, Jesse's top 10 video I already mentioned. I'm working on a couple of videos. The Stunt Derby update on our publisher struggles. We filmed some stuff last week, which was fun with Alex. He came up, or that was like 2 weeks ago actually. I have a Guilty Treasures with Will Smith for that one. Our first episode of Super Mario Oddities will hopefully be going.
It'll be done this week. I'm heading off to hang out with my parents next week, so I'm popping that this week. We got a very stupid thing off of Grailed for the intro that it is taking all my power not to show off. And
will we have the extended? We'll have the extended version for patrons, is what we're thinking maybe as well.
Yeah, we could do that.
The full one.
Yeah, it's the full. The way we recorded it is we watched the thing and then we kind of just like bantered over it just for fun, but like not with the intention of releasing the video as just like a watch along. It's not like riff tracks, but I do think it'd be fun for patrons just to be able to like watch us watch it with the context that we're not like we're like comedians commenting over that. We're just like having fun watching.
Just to reverse a second, basically this is a show where Jeremy is showing off very odd Mario media from a time before Nintendo gave a shit. And we're like reviewing it and also checking it out, sort of best of the worst style in some respect. And And yeah, we watched, what was it called again?
It was,
the movie?
Super Mario Brothers and the Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach is what I think it's called.
What an absolute fever dream. It came out like a year after the first game, and you can tell.
Dude, I got so many, when I was pulling footage for that video, I got so many other ones lined up in the chamber now. I got one where, one that's based on like the Princess Kaguya myth in Japanese folklore, where Mario's like a little homunculus, and like a Koopa family finds him and he's tiny. And then when he grows up, they give him a gun.
Whoa.
It's gonna be awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you sent me a screenshot of the gun thing. I was very confused.
Yeah, it's like this is a special heirloom gun, and they hand him like a Tommy gun. Yeah, Mario Oddities is gonna be really fun. I edited it. Everything except the intro is done, and it's really funny and weird, and yeah, it's just fun to see like a very established media figure like Mario subverted, but not in the way like this is the other thing is like, you know how was it like Pooh Bear or Mickey Mouse just came out into public domain, like one of the big Disney characters.
Steamboat Willie did, yeah.
Okay, so Steamboat Willie. So like now people can make like, oh, it's a video game where like Steamboat Willie, but he's like killing people. And I think that stuff is funny, but it's way more interesting to me, the middle ground between like indie developer making fun of big corporate giant and corporate giant trying to maintain brand authority. But the middle ground is like before they have it ironed out. It's like official Mario media that is unintentionally subversive. So there's an endless well of it. I'm excited.
Make sure you're subscribed to our free Patreon over at patreon.com/NoclipCrew to get updates on all that sort of stuff, and subscribe to our channel, Noclip Crew. Over at Noclip, obviously the Returning to Monkey Island documentary is up. Thanks for all the awesome feedback on that. Pentiment is coming, so is Hyperlight. Breaker, the series Hyperlight development episode 3, which I've almost finished. I think it's probably not going to come out because Pentiment's going to take up a lot of time, so probably not until mid-March we'll get that one up. Then we've got a lot of filming, GDC, and I'm heading off to Sweden and somewhere else in Europe for some fun stuff. So keep your eyes on that. All right, that's a podcast, folks. Thanks all for listening. Thanks for playing, gents. Jeremy, I'll see you in a little while over here to film some cool stuff. And until next week, we'll see you. Bye.